Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Trade Talk. This is episode 10. I am your host, Niko. And if you've been following along with this show, if you're new to the show, thanks for checking it out. If you have checked out an episode of this before and you've returned, then welcome back. And thank you for, coming on this journey with me as I discuss the collected comic editions that come out week to week that I've read. And I've read quite a bit this past week, actually. I'm not sure how I fit this many in. I mean, these are all kind of like trade paperbacks that had between 5 and 6 issues in them, but I've read about 6 different books here that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to spend a little bit less time, or at least try to, on each one of these books, more so than usual, just so I can get through them all. But looking through the stack, I kind of enjoyed everything to some degree, so I did want to talk about all of them for you guys here today. So we'll see how it goes. If it goes very long, then I may have to cut back on future episodes, but, let's try her out. All right, first up, we got Oblivion Song, Volume 3. This is written by Robert Kirkman, art by Lorenzo De Felici, who I think... his work I was new to with this book, Oblivion Song. I'm not sure if he's done any actual major American comic book work prior to this. I think he's an Italian artist from what I recall. And when the book came out, they were already calling him a superstar. And I don't know if they were just doing that to sell the book, or if I'm just not aware of this dude, or maybe he is in Italy or wherever he's from in Europe. But I believe he's Italian. But anyways, this is... Yeah, it says on the back here, Robert Kirkman and Italian superstar Lorenzo De Felici. So this collects issues 13, 18, and it is an Image book, obviously, because, Robert Kirkman, all this stuff comes out through there at this point. He has shares in the company. Is an executive there as well. I like this book a lot. I think out of everything Robert Kirkman's doing now, that Invincible's done and Walking Dead is done, out of his current books that are ongoing right now, Outcast, which I actually talked about, I think it was a week or two ago, actually, I talked about Outcast. And this, I'm really vibing on this, and if he's writing other... he wrote that Die book, but I wasn't a huge fan of that one. I really like this book a lot, though. It continues to be interesting every volume. The art style, I was trying to think of how to describe the art style if you've never checked out this book. He's a mix between James Herron and Tradd Moore, I would say, whose work... I love both of those guys' work. They're both amazing artists. But by saying that, I only see some of those guys' art styles within this guy's art style. I don't feel he's as good as either of those artists individually on his own. So I just wanted to make that clear. If I had to relate it, if I had to, look at certain things that this guy does or that his style is close to in relation to kind of describe the art to you, then I would say... those two. More so probably James Herron, but again, not as good as either of those artists in my opinion. His art's not bad. Sometimes some of his characters look real funny in the face. Like, I think some of the actual line work itself, when he's trying to put detail on folks in this book, is more similar to Tradd Moore, but I think stylistically, the way all the things, like the disfigured creatures that are in this book and the world that we visit in this book, Oblivion, looks, I think that looks more like James Herron. So I don't know, it's weird, but I don't mind the art. I think it's okay. I just think that there's not many books that it would work for, and this works, though. I think when he's, at least when he's in Oblivion, he doesn't really draw good humans or good human faces or reactions. His character works, okay, but he draws great, creatures, great world-building stuff when they go to the Oblivion. So, essentially, if you've never read this book, this is a book about this guy. There's this another world called Oblivion, which becomes this parallel world that people can visit outside of their world. It's almost like their city is still in the same spot, but when you go into this almost mirror universe, other dimension of sort called Oblivion, it's like you can end up in the same place as you would in where you were standing in the city in their world, but yet it's completely different. Like there's all kinds of weird creatures, and there's all kinds of like, you know, post-apocalyptic shit going on, and it's like they got their own society there and their own ways of living life and rules, and basically something happened, some sort of event where a whole bunch of people got left over there, and the main character that we follow in this, Nathan Cole, who we followed right from the start, his brother, he ended up losing him to this other world, and he ended up staying there and becoming acclimated to that society in those ways. And in the first book, he finds out that he's alive, and he goes to bring him back, and he successfully does so. But then I think he ends up returning to Oblivion, and he's able to travel back and forth between Oblivion and this other world. And for a period of time, all his brother did was, because of what they did in opening up this other world, they felt guilty that all these people ended up dying as a result of it. And like, he's a scientist, so he continuously would go back and forth from one world to the next and bring back people like survivors and and then when they would come back to Earth, and they would have like sort of like PTSD symptoms of being in the Oblivion world, and then coming back and trying to get acclimated back to like living a normal life and not being on the run from weird creatures and this kind of thing. And in that sense, some of the tropes from the story we have seen done in other science fiction and things before, but the way that he's approaching it, and the story that's being told, and the story between these two brothers and their outlook on life, and kind of how they've been going about it, and how this guy's been dealing with everything that had occurred between them and this other world, and how he's trying to like live his life now is all very interesting. Like, on a human level, I really connected to some of the characters in this. I think Robert Kirkman's doing a great job. It's very interesting, volume to volume. There's more new interesting things that are coming to light. In this recent volume, Volume 3, for instance, they found out that there's these people called the Faceless Men, as they're calling them, in Oblivion now, which are basically these creatures that have, I don't know, they've advanced in terms of like how smart and how they've reacted to and adapted to that world, Oblivion, and now it seems like they could pose a threat to everyone who's still living there, as well as the humans if they were to cross over. So it's very interesting stuff. So check it out, Oblivion Song. The first volume is $9.99 through Image Comics. It collects the first 6 issues. Give it a shot. If you've been down on Kirkman's writing, maybe some things haven't been vibing with you that he's been doing recently or overall, I think this one's a little bit different in tone than what you would expect from him. It's very sci-fi, very interesting though. I really enjoy it every time it comes out. Okay, next up we got Hawkeye Volume 2. This is again the Kelly Thompson, Kate Bishop Hawkeye book that was coming out in issues a couple years ago. This is collecting issues 7 to 12. And again, art by Leonardo Romero and Michael Walsh, and Jordi Belair on colors. I talked about the last volume, I think, last week of this, and I ended up picking Volume 2 and 3 after reading the first volume. I really, really love this. I actually love this volume even more than the first one. The first one, it kind of, I had my trepidations about it because I going into it, because I said I read a few of the issues already, and it didn't really vibe with me. Revisiting it after hearing how good the book was and trying to give it a second shot, I did enjoy it a bit more. But this second volume just solidified things for me. I'm just I don't really have too much more to say on this. That again, fantastic art between Leonardo Romero and Michael Walsh. They both have similar art styles in the sense that, like, not one artist coming into the single issue Michael Walsh did not make it jarring in comparison to seeing Leonardo Romero's art. Sometimes when you get different artists on a book, it kind of, it's very apparent and very obvious, and it can mess with the flow of the book. Not the case with these two. My favorite part of these issues 7 to 12 was the last one, where you basically have a team up with Laura X-23, like Wolverine, which was absolutely fantastic. I love her, and I love Gabby, her sister, and that the fact that they actually have a pet Wolverine. I was a big fan of that X-23 book where Laura came out of, and was basically going on at the same time as this book. Tom Taylor wrote it. If you've never checked that book out, definitely check that out. That's a great book, that X-23 book. But yeah, anyways, that was my favorite issue of the trade overall. But it was just a lot of fun, very funny. The jokes got even funnier in this one. She's got a great cast of characters in this. The art was great. She's solving mysteries. She's living her life and kicking ass. And it's just a really, really fun book. Can't wait till read the third and last volume, and I'll report back. All right, next up. Oh, this is like a Kelly Thompson love fest. Yeah, that, like I said, I had mentioned when I picked up the Hawkeye book. She was not somebody that was on my radar previously, so I ended up picking a couple of books up by her that I've heard were really good after reading some other things she had done. I was like, okay, I think you missed the boat on this Kelly Thompson writer. This is Jessica Jones Blind Spot. This is the first time it's in print. It's a trade paperback that was $20 US retail. It collects, I think, basically the first 6 issues. Well, here's the thing. This was the reason this says first time in print. If you're looking to read this first came out digitally, I guess, on the Marvel Comics app. So you can read this online as well, because it originally was a digital comic first. But then Marvel, they do this thing where if it comes out digitally first, they collect it after the fact and trade paperback, and then they slap this thing on it and say first time in print, because they skip the issues altogether. Like, these didn't come out in single issues in the comic book store. It only came out digitally and then came out in trade paperback. So for me, I picked up the trade. Big fan of the character Jessica Jones. Huge fan of what Bendis did with this Alias series. That I think I've only watched the first season of her show, despite there being a couple others. Did they do 3 of that show, or was there only 2? I think Daredevil did. I know they did 3, but I think there was only 2 seasons. Jessica Jones. I didn't watch the second one. First one was good. But yeah, this was. I mean, I loved this so much. This is my favorite thing I've read by Kelly Thompson, and I love Bendis' take on Jessica Jones. Even the last series that he did before he left Marvel, I really enjoyed. And I didn't think anything can touch Alias, and apparently he handpicked her to take over this book before he left. This was so good. She has the voice down of Jessica Jones so good. The only thing I will complain about is, except for like the last issue, and I don't know why that issue in particular, maybe it was the certain swear words that they were letting loose, is that this wasn't branded as like a Max title like the Alias series Bendis used to be, like a mature content title. So a lot of the swearing in this was bleeped out. I don't know why, and again, it's not a deal breaker. But it just seemed odd that, and I get it. Even the last, I think Jessica Jones. No, that one did have swearing. Jessica Jones, whatever her series have come out and was written by Bendis, like the swearing was there, so it just kind of felt weird that they were steering away from the swearing or like bleeping it out, and so that felt a little off about the character. But otherwise, yeah, this is great. Great mystery in this that was solved within the full 6 issues, as well as the start of the next arc. There's one other trade paperback that's out right now, which is involving her and the Purple Man, which I can't wait to get my hands on and read, because yeah, I just flew through this, and the art was great too. The art is De Ulias. I don't know how to say it. DE space IULIS. No clue how to say that guy's name. I apologize. Sorry, it's Mattia De Ulias. I'm sorry, I was just looking at the cover there. And Marcio Takara did issue 6. But yeah, I just had so much fun with this. She had the voice down. There was an interesting mystery. When she solved it, I did not see that coming. There was interesting bad guys that she made up for this. Elsa Bloodstone was in this, and she teamed up with her, and who's also a huge potty mouth. She fucking swears her ass off in this, but again, it's all bleeped out, but you could obviously tell what she's saying when she's writing her. Spider-Man was in this. So yeah, it was awesome. You've seen all these really, I love Elsa Bloodstone. I mean, she's a monster hunter. If you guys don't know who she is, she's like this British monster hunter chick. Usually more in the paranormal type books, but for whatever reason, she came across her during this case as being somebody who had made contact with the person who had gone missing she's trying to find. So there's a moment where they both team up. Doctor Strange is in this. I love Doctor Strange. She goes to him for help because there's definitely some supernatural things that are occurring, going on with this case that she ends up solving. Anyways, I just love this. I can't say it, I don't want to get too much into story specific details, but it is a mystery book. She is a detective, a private eye, and she solves cases. So if you know anything about Jessica Jones and you like the character, or you like the Bendis version of the character, or the show, definitely check this out. If you like this character at all, this is one of the best versions of her that I've ever read, and it was amazing. I loved it. Rogue and Gambit. This is volume 0. This is also written by Kelly Thompson, and it's art by, I think it's Perry Perez. Color art by Frank D'Armata. So this, I had read, and actually I talked about, I think, the second volume on this show as well, of the Mr. and Mrs. X series. There was 2 volumes that collect, I think, like 12 issues of that series. It's now canceled and over. But this was the prologue prior to that series starting. This is a mini-series called Rogue and Gambit that came out prior to them getting married, and then in the X-Men books, and then starting off their own series called Mr. and Mrs. X. So if you were a fan of that stuff, if you read that by Kelly Thompson, and you like that like I did, I didn't pick this up initially. I just started off with the Mr. and Mrs. X Volume 1, but this was the mini-series that led into that. This was fun. I mean, if you liked those series, definitely check it out. If you did not read that series, but if you're into kind of like romantic kind of fun romps with X-Men, check this out. I didn't think I was going to dig this, but I dug the Mr. and Mrs. X book. It was fun. There was good art on this book, and you get the thieving Gambit type stuff going on. You also got Rogue kicking major ass like she normally does. I'm a fan of these X-Men, not so much Gambit, more so Rogue. But again, for Kelly Thompson's fun, witty dialogue, as well as her love for these characters, I think it just shines through, and it makes it for an enjoyable read. So I really liked this one as well. Next up, we got Immortal Hulk, Volume 4, written by Al Ewing, art by Joe Bennett, and then a bunch of different inkers, too many to mention here. But I will say I wasn't familiar with Joe Bennett's artwork prior to this book, but this seems like the book that he was made for. Joe Bennett is doing a fantastic job on this title. And if you guys have not jumped on the bandwagon for Immortal Hulk, one of Marvel's current best-selling titles, you need to ASAP. On this show, if I had to give I know I've said I've been enjoying everything, and I'm giving out recommendations left and right and telling you to pick up all of these books. But if I had to point to 2 books out of all 6 of the ones you need to pick up from reading today, it's Immortal Hulk and the Jessica Jones book I just told you about. This book is just so good. It's like body horror stuff going on, like things with the devil. Like, this is a very different version of the Hulk. Now, there's a lot that Al Ewing is paying respects to from the Hulk's history, and I haven't read an amazing amount of Hulk comics. Like, I haven't read them all. I haven't read a lot of his past stuff. I'm familiar with a lot of the things. Something that's mentioned in this book, he brings back the idea of the Grey Hulk, Mr. Fix-It, was essentially another version of the Hulk, alias of Bruce Banner, where he went by Mr. Fix-It, and he was this guy that was living in Las Vegas. That's from Peter David's Hulk run, who wrote the character for like 10 years or something ridiculous like that. He wrote like the longest run on the Hulk, I think, ever out of anybody. I have some of that stuff, but I've yet to read it. They've been coming out in the Marvel Epic collection, so if you're into the Hulk, definitely check out the Peter David run, because I've heard nothing but good things. I'm aware of some of his history, and from what I've been told, Al Ewing is just doing a great job of including everything and anything about the Hulk's history and continuity into his current storyline, but also bringing a new take on the character as well. Like, he's not ignoring everything that came before it. but he, it's almost like he's paying homage to it and working its way slowly into his current tale that he's telling. And in this right now, it's just like, it's a horror book. It's just basically like an evil version of Hulk. Like the immortal Hulk is this Hulk that basically can't die. Like when night comes, he like turns into the Hulk, like almost like a werewolf or something like that when he sees a full moon, or like that is essentially Banner turns into this monster at night, and this Hulk is smart and intelligent and also evil to the core of, like, to the point where he wants to hurt bad people purposely, and he's very self-aware of it. And there's been a lot of body horror and horror kind of elements in this title so far, and in this one, like I said, they work in the Mr. Fix-It. There's different versions of the Hulk that continue to emerge throughout Banner. The Abomination, a bad guy from the Hulk's history, is in this, but it's like an amalgamation of somebody else that they fused into the Abomination's body in order to take down the Hulk, because, like always, the army is after him. And yeah, there's just like all this weird like Frankenstein type shit going on in this book. There was in one of the other volumes at one point they steal the Hulk and try to like slice him and dice him up into these pieces, and then they put all of his body in different jars of formaldehyde, and he basically is able to move his hand in the jar and bring himself back together. He's just like, oh, you've done it now. Like, he's basically like a floating head in a jar, and he's like, don't you know that you can't kill me? Like, and he basically just, so like crazy shit like that is going on in this book right now, and it's just a hell of a lot of fun. And yeah, they went to hell, and they essentially said like there's a devil Hulk, like essentially like the Hulk is like a form of the devil, or is the devil. I don't know. I mean, it's just some of the things that are a little lost on me that are happening, but it's all very interesting. A take that I've never seen on the Hulk, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. So definitely check this out, Immortal Hulk. And last but not least, we got Old Man Quill. This is volume 1. This is a 12-issue maxi series, which is, again, taking place in the Old Man universe. I mean, most people know Old Man Logan, a book that Mark Millar did, and they basically brought it back for the last couple years. They've been doing an Old Man Logan series as they shuffled Wolverine off the board and brought in this Old Man Logan version of him from a futuristic version of him from another, like, I guess, dimension, like a world in the 616 Marvel Universe. So, and then because of the popularity of Old Man Logan and that story, they this writer Ethan Sachs, who I guess is more of a novelist, he writes prose as far as I know prior to this, or maybe he's a TV guy. A lot of these guys that they bring in, these new creators, are either TV or actual writers of novels. I believe this guy is a writer though. Of like novels, and the artists on here are Robert Gill, issues 1, 3, and 5, and Abraham Robertson, issues 4 and 6. Yeah, this wasn't bad. I really I enjoy these different Elseworld kind of takes, like these futuristic what-if type storylines that Marvel likes to do with their characters. Like, this is not in continuity. I mean, it could be a possible future and maybe reference at some point. Ethan Sachs also wrote the Old Man Hawkeye book, which he did prior to this. And let me tell you, this seemed like the stupidest fucking gimmick, these other Old Man books, where basically they take a character that's well known and show you a different version of them when they get old in the future, in this post-apocalyptic fucking fallout of a world that's supposed to take place during the same time of Old Man Logan. And I thought that was really stupid when I first heard about it. I was like, why are they going to do Old Man Logan was the thing? Leave it as is. That is a character everybody knows. You don't have to fucking go and start making all their Old Man versions of different characters. So I totally dismissed it at first. And then I heard the Old Man Hawkeye book was actually good. So I ended up picking that up and really fucking enjoying that book. That book was awesome. It was like a 12-issue series, just like this one's going to be. And this first volume collects issues 1 to 6. And then, I when Old Man Quill was announced, I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm even more of a fan of Hawkeye than I am of Peter Quill, Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I like the character, but I wouldn't call myself, I don't know if I need to read a solo book with him. Anyways, I heard good things about this, so I picked it up. And yeah, it was pretty darn good. Again, it's just this writer having a lot of fun with reintroducing characters, that are different in this world in the future. People get old and life has taken a toll on some. Some of them are not what we remember them as. We have relatives of characters and lots of wacky ideas and shit going on in this, and essentially some big reveals about Peter Quill in this, and it's not what you expect. There's twists and turns as you're going throughout the storyline. I will say there was a couple of big surprises that I encountered while reading this, and Peter Quill is not in a good place essentially in this future, but he's struggling. He's got his guardians again by his side in this, and they're making their way through space, having adventures, while people are coming for their heads like usual, like the normal Guardians of the Galaxy type stories most people are familiar with. But the setting is different, and the characters are written differently than you would have expected them to be, and everyone's worshiping Doom in the future, and Star-Lord had became the Emperor of Spartax in his father's place, and that didn't take too well for his life. It took a couple of nasty turns for him, and he's basically just become this old miserable drunk at the start of this, and then he has to hook back up with the Guardians who come back for him, and then he sets out almost on this mission that kind of takes them a lot of interesting places, including the Wastelands, which is a very dangerous place, as we've learned through the Wolverine Old Man Logan book and the Hawkeye book, right? So, yeah, if you like that world, if you liked any of those other versions of the Old Man Logan or Old Man Hawkeye, I will say this was an unexpected enjoyment. This book, I really enjoyed myself reading it. And it was a lot of fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, not in continuity, good character writing. Art's okay. I will say that's probably the weakest part of it. The art was just all right. He does a serviceable job enough, but he's not like my favorite artist or anything, and I wasn't too familiar with either of these artists going into this. So, yeah, the art wasn't bad, but anyways. Yeah, so definitely check it out. Old Man Quill, Volume 1, not bad at all. All right, and that does it for today, guys. Sorry if I sound like I was speeding through there. I kind of was. I did want to touch on all 6 of these titles, and looks like I did in a reasonable amount of time. If you do think I should slow down more to talk about less, definitely drop that in the comments of this. Check out our other stuff on the Late Night Chat Network YouTube account and the Instagram account. I've been dropping more new content for you guys, posting pictures of my weekly hauls of collected editions and single comic issues now. As well as hopefully on the YouTube, I'll be putting some more comic content out on there as well soon enough. So check us out, guys. Thank you.